Welcome back to the Conversion Bible.
Yeah.
You know, you come here for these deep dives powered by Growth Suite. Growth Suite, by the way.
Right.
It can help you run some really smart discount campaigns on your Shopify store. You can test it out for free on your Shopify store. Just go to the Shopify App Store, try it out, no risk.
Yeah.
But today we're talking all about the endowment effect.
Oh, yeah.
And this is so fascinating to me. I was reading this article, The Endowment Effect. Making Shopify customers feel ownership before they buy.
Yeah.
It's right here on Conversion Bible.
Yeah.
But what's so interesting about it is this idea of pre-ownership. You can leverage people feeling like they own something before they actually buy it.
Yeah.
And that, to me, is just like, wow, this is really next level. So we need to understand how this works. We need to understand why it's so powerful.
Yes.
And more importantly, you listening to this, like, how can you actually use it right? Like, how can you weave this into your product pages, your content, even the design of your Shopify store? So we're going to look at some successful stores and what specific techniques they use.
Yeah.
And our mission here is to ethically give your conversion rates a real boost.
Right.
But not like be sleazy about it. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. You don't want to pressure anyone.
No.
Yeah.
We're not into the dark patterns. We want to do this ethically.
Yeah.
So, okay, you're the expert here. Let's unpack this.
Okay. So let's start with the psychology behind the endowment effect, all right? So it was first identified by an economist, Richard Thaler, back in the 1970s. And he basically noticed that people value something more highly once they feel a sense of ownership. Pretty simple,
Yeah.
but powerful.
Okay. So, like, let's say I have this old T-shirt. It's super comfortable. Been wearing it for years.
Yeah.
Objectively, it's probably worth, like, nothing. But I would never get rid of it.
Ah, I see what you mean. That makes total sense.
You know, and this whole, like, loss aversion thing is just fascinating.
Yeah.
Because that's what's kind of in play here, right?
Absolutely.
The pain of losing something, it's way stronger than the joy of getting something new that's of equal value.
Yes, exactly.
And that's what's so powerful about this idea, right?
Yes.
Because here's the thing, and this is what's really important for people running Shopify stores. You don't actually have to transfer ownership to trigger this.
Exactly.
It's the feeling of ownership.
Yes.
It's psychological ownership, right? That's what we can tap into.
Precisely. And it's not just like a fleeting feeling either. Like there's actually been some really interesting research done with brain scans
Oh, wow.
that shows that when we feel this sense of ownership, it activates parts of our brain that are linked to our self-identity.
That is fascinating.
Yeah. So it literally becomes like part of us in a way.
It's not just, oh, I like that thing.
Yeah.
It's that thing is a part of me.
Yeah.
Okay, so how do we make that happen?
Yeah. All right, so there are 3 key pillars of what we call psychological ownership, all right? And I like to think of these as like the building blocks that we can use to kind of create that sense of ownership before someone buys something. And these are control, investment of self, and intimate knowledge. And the article kind of breaks them down really nicely.
So, okay, let's start with control. What does that mean in the context of, like, a Shopify store?
Okay, so think of it like this. When you feel like you can influence something, you're automatically more connected to it, right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
So, like, think about interactive 3D product viewers, you know?
I've seen those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those are really great
Yeah.
because they let people rotate the product, zoom in, check out the details. Like, it's like they're holding it in their hand.
It's way more engaging than just a static image.
Yeah.
Like, I've noticed, like, when I see those, I'm like, oh, let me check out the other side. Let me see what this looks like.
Yeah.
You know, it draws you in more. And there are apps that can help you do that, too.
Yes.
Like Model Viewer, AR Quick Look.
Yeah. Those are great.
Yeah, I've heard of those. Okay, cool. So that's control. What about investment of self?
Okay, so this is where I always think of that IKEA furniture analogy.
Yeah.
You know?
Yes, absolutely.
You build the thing yourself.
Yeah.
And you put all that effort into it, right?
Yes.
And so you value it more because it was your sweat and tears that went into putting that thing together.
And you would never get rid of it.
Yeah.
Because it's like, I built this.
Exactly. And so for a Shopify store, personalization is key here.
Okay.
So you can let people add their name to a product or customize features.
Monogram or something?
Yeah, exactly. Or like picking the colors.
Okay.
And there's some apps that can help you with this too. Product Customizer, bold product options, and there are even product builders or configurators. Like let's say you're selling a computer or something. You can let people pick like, what kind of processor they want, how much RAM, the hard drive size, all that. And then they basically designed their ideal computer.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
I like that.
And, even things like quizzes, that can be really effective.
Oh, how? How does that work?
Well, you can, ask them a series of questions about their needs, their preferences.
Right.
And then, based on their answers, you recommend a specific product. And because they've invested the time and effort to answer the questions, they're going to feel more connected to that product, right? It feels like it was chosen just for them.
It makes them feel like an expert almost, like they've gone through this process, they've answered all these questions.
Exactly.
And now they know what they need.
Yes.
This is so interesting. Okay, so we've got control. We've got investment of self. What about intimate knowledge?
Okay, so this is all about really knowing the product, understanding it deeply.
Not just seeing it, but like
Yeah.
knowing it. Right?
Yeah. Think about a detailed product description, right?
Yeah.
You don't just want to list the features and specs.
Yeah.
You want to help them visualize using the product in their own lives.
Make it real for them.
Exactly.
Okay.
And then think about behind the scenes content.
Oh, yeah.
How is it made? What are the materials?
Yeah, I like that.
What's the story behind it?
Yeah. Because, I think people, they want to connect to something more than just like, oh, it's a thing.
Right.
You know what I
Yes,
mean?
Yeah. And then educational content can also be really powerful. So, helping them become more knowledgeable about the product category itself.
They feel like experts.
Exactly. And when they understand the why behind the product, the how behind it, they're going to feel more connected to it, right?
Okay. So it's not enough to just show the product. You
Yeah.
need to tell a story.
Yes.
You need to create a narrative.
Mm-hmm.
You need to make them feel like they're in the know.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've got the psychology.
Mm-hmm.
We've got the 3 pillars: control, investment of self, intimate knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
Now, how do we actually use this strategically on a Shopify store to boost conversions?
So it's really about creating multiple touch points throughout the customer journey, all right? It's not just about doing one thing. It's about weaving it in at different points.
Yeah.
So let's start with the product page.
That's like the core.
Yeah.
That's your main, that's where the action happens, right?
Exactly. So remember how we talked about interactive images?
Yes.
So you want to make sure that you're using detailed zoom functionality. There's some apps that can help you with this, like Magic Zoom Plus. And this lets people really scrutinize the quality and details of the product. It's like they're holding it in their hand.
I've seen that on some websites, and I love it.
Yeah.
It's so much easier to get a sense of the texture and the size and all that.
Mm-hmm. And then the language you use is also really important.
Right.
So instead of using generic phrases, try incorporating ownership-focused copy.
Like what?
Like you could say your new product name, or, imagine how you'll feel when you use this. Get them thinking about themselves owning and using it.
Oh, that's a good tip.
Yeah. And video demonstrations are also really helpful
Yeah.
because they let people see the product in action,
It makes it more real.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've got the product page down.
Mm-hmm.
What about the shopping cart?
Okay. So here's where you want to really reinforce that feeling of ownership, all right?
Yeah.
So one thing you can do is use progress indicators.
Oh, like towards free shipping.
Exactly, or a discount or something like that. And this creates a sense of momentum and investment.
Yeah.
They're moving closer to a benefit. And allowing them to save their cart is also a good idea
Oh, yeah.
because it creates this tangible sense of having something set aside.
Right. Like I put that there for me.
Exactly. And again, the language is important. So use phrases like your items instead of just cart items.
Your items.
Yeah.
Okay. And what about the checkout? Because, sometimes that can be a point where people hesitate.
Yeah.
What can we do there?
So the goal at checkout is to make it feel like a natural confirmation of ownership, all right? You don't want to make it feel like a transaction.
Yeah.
You want to make it feel like they're just completing the process of getting something that's already theirs.
Right.
So use future-focused language like complete your purchase and make it yours instead of just buy now.
Oh, that's a good point.
And then give them a preview of what happens next, like show them tracking information or an estimated delivery date. This reinforces the idea that the item is practically theirs already.
It makes it feel real.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've talked about the product page, the shopping cart, the checkout, but we can't forget about mobile.
Oh,
because that's where, a huge amount of traffic comes from these days.
Yeah, over 70% of Shopify traffic is mobile. Wow.
So it's really important to have a mobile-first approach.
Okay.
So those interactive elements that we talked about earlier, like the 3D viewers, they need to work perfectly on touchscreens.
Have to be easy to use.
Yeah, you don't want people pinching and zooming and getting frustrated.
No.
So keep the customization process simple. Use gesture-based controls like swiping through images. The easier and more intuitive it is to interact with your store on mobile, the more in control the customer feels.
And the more likely they are to buy.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've talked about the overall strategy.
Yeah.
What about the specific technology, like the apps that can help us implement all this?
Oh,
You mentioned a few earlier,
yeah.
but like, what are some of the key ones that people should be looking at?
Okay, so for product customization, there are some great apps out there,
Yeah.
like Product Customizer
Yeah.
and Bold Product Options. Those are really popular.
Okay.
And then for 3D and AR experiences, you can check out Shopify AR or AR Quick Look. Yeah, those are becoming increasingly popular. I see those more and more.
Yeah, they're really cool. And then if you want to use quizzes, there's an app called Octane AI.
Okay.
That's a good one. And for like enhanced image viewing, you can check out Magic Zoom Plus.
Okay, cool. So we've got a whole toolbox here to work with.
Mm-hmm.
But how do we know if all this is actually working?
All right, so A/B testing is your best friend here.
That's where you test different versions of something.
Exactly. So you could test different versions of your product page, different versions of your checkout flow,
Okay.
and see which one performs better. See which one leads to more conversions. And the great thing is, a lot of stores that implement these strategies, they see really significant conversion rate increases.
Like how much are we talking?
Well, it's not uncommon to see increases of like 15 to 30%.
Wow, that's a big jump.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got the theory, we've got the tools.
Mm-hmm.
Now let's get to the really nitty-gritty, actionable tactics. Like, what are some things that people can do right away to start creating this feeling of pre-purchase ownership?
So interactive product visualization is a big one. Don't just rely on static images. Give people 360-degree views, let them zoom in on the details, offer color or style switchers.
Oh, yeah. Those color switchers are great. It's like you're designing the product yourself.
Exactly. And then there's virtual try-on and augmented reality. So if you're selling apparel or accessories, this is really powerful. Let people see how it would look on them, right? And if you're selling furniture or home decor, you can use AR to let them place the item in their own home.
I've seen some furniture companies do that,
Mm-hmm.
and it's really helpful because it's hard to visualize, like, is this sofa going to fit in my living room?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Exactly. And then we've talked about personalization and customization.
Yes.
So make sure you're offering those options. Even something as simple as letting them see their name engraved on a product can be really effective.
Yeah, that makes it feel unique to them.
Exactly. And don't underestimate the power of free samples or trial periods.
Oh, yeah.
Even if it's a digital sample, it gives people a chance to experience the product before they fully commit.
Lowers the risk.
Exactly. And then there's user-generated content.
That's a big one these days.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So showcase photos and videos of real people using and enjoying your products. Integrate customer reviews prominently.
Social proof.
Exactly. And then simple things like wish lists and saved items. These can create an initial investment and a feeling of having something set aside. And then consider offering preview access to new products, maybe for members or subscribers. This makes them feel special and creates a sense of anticipation.
Like they're in the club.
Exactly.
I like that. Okay, so we've talked about the visuals,
Mm-hmm.
but what about the words we use?
Ah,
How can content and copywriting reinforce this feeling of ownership?
so it's really about subtle shifts in your language patterns, all right?
Okay. Give me some examples.
So instead of saying this item, say your new item, use possessive pronouns. Talk in the present tense as if they already own it. Paint vivid future ownership scenarios. Like, imagine using this at your next gathering and the compliments you'll receive.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. And don't be afraid to use assumptive language. Like, you'll absolutely love how this feels in your hand.
Oh, that's okay. So it's not just what you say, it's how you say it.
Exactly. And then when you're writing product descriptions, go beyond just listing the features.
Yes.
Use vivid sensory language. Describe the texture, the feel, the scent, if it's relevant. Walk them through how the product will fit into their life. Focus on the benefits. What problems does it solve? What positive outcomes will they experience by owning it?
Paint a picture.
Exactly. And your email marketing should also be ownership focused.
Okay.
So abandoned cart reminders could say, your items are still waiting for you.
Your items.
Yeah.
Not just like you forgot something.
Exactly. Wish list reminders can highlight the item you've been admiring, keep that feeling of desire going. And storytelling is also really powerful. Share customer journeys, the origin story of your product. Use second-person narratives that involve the reader.
Make them feel like they're a part of the story.
Exactly. And on social media, use user-generated content campaigns, behind-the-scenes content, interactive polls. Consistently showcase social proof. The key is to have a consistent message across all your channels. That feeling of potential ownership should be reinforced everywhere they encounter your brand.
Okay, so we've got the words. What about the visuals? Like, how can the design of our Shopify store enhance this feeling of ownership?
So, first and foremost, you need great product photography.
Yeah.
Show your products in context, in real-life settings. Use scale indicators. Maybe show it next to a familiar object so people can get a sense of the size. Provide multiple angles. Include people interacting with the products. And don't forget those close-up macro shots to highlight the quality and detail.
And color is important too, right?
Oh yeah. Color psychology can be really powerful. Warm colors tend to evoke positive feelings. Maintain a consistent color palette throughout your store. Use contrasting colors for your call to action buttons. And make sure your UI elements are well designed. Things like progress indicators, cart previews, favorite icons, all those little details can reinforce the idea of ownership.
Okay, and mobile design is crucial for this too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So you want to make sure your mobile site is super easy to use. Thumb-friendly controls, simplified customization interfaces, prominent high-resolution images, intuitive swipe actions, all that good stuff. And pay attention to the visual hierarchy of your pages. Make those customization options easy to find. Provide clear visual feedback when someone interacts with something. Showcase user-generated content in an appealing way. And test. See what works best for your audience.
So we've talked about personalization,
Mm-hmm.
but how can we use personalization to specifically enhance the endowment effect?
So the more personalized an experience feels, the stronger that feeling of ownership becomes, right? Because it feels like it's tailored just for them.
It's like, this was made for me.
Exactly. And there are different types of personalization. There's explicit personalization, where they actively choose preferences. There's implicit personalization, which is based on their behavior. There's contextual personalization, which adapts to their location or device. And then there's community-based personalization, which uses recommendations based on what similar people like.
Okay, so a lot of options there. How do we actually implement this on Shopify?
So we talked about some apps earlier, like the product customizers. Those are great for explicit personalization, and recommendation engines are good for implicit and community-based personalization. Shopify also has built-in customer account features that you can use to store preferences, and there are segmentation tools that let you tailor experiences for different groups.
Okay, cool. But all this personalization relies on data.
Right.
So how do we collect that data ethically? Because you don't want to creep people out.
Right. So transparency is key. Be upfront about what data you're collecting and why. Give people control over their data and preferences. And anonymize data whenever possible. You can use progressive profiling, which means asking for information gradually over time. Offer preference centers where people can tell you what they're interested in. Use quizzes and surveys that provide value to the customer while also gathering data. The goal is to make people feel like you're being helpful, not intrusive.
Yeah, you don't want to be Big Brother.
Exactly. And start with basic personalization and gradually get more advanced as you get to know your customers better.
Okay, that makes sense. So we talked about individual personalization, but what about social proof? How does that play into all this?
Well, social proof taps into that herd mentality, you know? We want to do what other people are doing. So use things like real-time popularity indicators. 5 other people are viewing this right now. Purchase countdown timers. Only 2 left in stock. Social statistics. Over 10,000 happy customers. Trending product indicators. All those things create a sense of urgency and validation.
It's like, oh, if everyone else wants it, it must be good.
Exactly. And then you want to build a strong brand community. Create exclusive groups. Launch initiatives based on shared values. Give people opportunities to participate and contribute content. User-generated content is great for this. Showcasing real people enjoying your products. Influencer marketing can also be very effective. Partner with people who genuinely align with your brand and whose audience matches your target market. And make sure your social media is seamlessly integrated with your Shopify store.
So it's all about building a sense of belonging.
Exactly. Because when people feel like they're part of something, they're more likely to want the things that are associated with that group.
Okay, so we've talked about a lot of different strategies here. What are some real-world examples of companies that are doing this well?
So there are tons of examples, but here are a few that really stood out to me from the article. There's a small custom jewelry boutique that started letting people preview their initials on necklaces.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, and it led to a huge increase in sales of personalized items.
Wow.
And then there's a handmade furniture shop that lets people virtually reserve specific wood grains for their pieces.
Oh, that's clever.
Yeah.
Because you feel like you're getting something unique.
Exactly.
It's not just like, oh, this is a mass-produced piece of furniture.
Right.
It's like, this was made for me.
Exactly. And then there's an independent bookstore that created a shelf visualization tool where you can see how a book would look on your virtual bookshelf.
Oh, I like that. Because you can see if it matches your decor.
Exactly. And it increased their hardcover sales significantly.
Well, that's amazing.
Yeah. And then at the enterprise level, there's a fashion retailer that integrated AR try-on into their app.
Oh, yeah.
And it reduced returns and increased conversions.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Because you know what it's going to look like before you buy it.
Exactly. And then there's a home furnishing brand that created a virtual room planner tool.
Oh, yeah. Those are popular.
Yeah, and it led to a huge increase in both conversions and average order value.
Wow. So it works for big companies, too.
Yeah. And then there's a beauty company that lets people customize their own product formulas, which not only increased sales, but it also gave them a ton of data on customer preferences.
Oh, that's smart. Okay, so lots of success stories. But were there any examples where this didn't work so well? Like, what are the pitfalls we should avoid?
Yeah, so some companies have overcomplicated the customization process, which can lead to decision paralysis. And some have used tactics that feel manipulative, like false scarcity or high-pressure sales tactics, and that can backfire. And then some have collected too much data without being transparent about it, which can erode trust. So the key takeaway is to be authentic and provide genuine value. Don't try to trick people. Focus on building relationships.
Yeah, because that's what it's all about, building those relationships and creating those long-term customers.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've implemented some of these strategies. How do we know if they're actually working?
So you want to track your key performance indicators or KPIs?
Okay, so what are some of the most important ones for this?
Well, your overall conversion rate is obviously important, but you also want to look at things like time on page, interaction rates with those ownership building features, cart abandonment rate, return rate, average order value, and A/B testing is crucial. Test different versions of things and see what works best. You can also segment your audience and see if different groups respond differently to certain tactics and implement changes gradually so you can track the impact.
Okay, so it's data-driven.
Mm-hmm.
But what about getting feedback directly from customers?
Oh, yeah. That's really important, too. So use post-purchase surveys. Ask people what influenced their decision. Heat mapping tools can show you where people are clicking and interacting on your pages. User testing is great for observing how people actually use your store. And pay attention to the sentiment in customer reviews.
So it's a mix of quantitative and qualitative data.
Exactly.
And we also need to remember that this is about more than just immediate sales.
Right.
It's about long-term customer loyalty.
Yeah.
So we want to see if these strategies are leading to more repeat purchases, more referrals, a better brand perception, and ultimately we want to calculate the ROI. Are we actually getting a return on our investment in these strategies?
Exactly.
Okay, so let's talk about ethics.
Yes.
Because it's really important to do this in a way that's not manipulative or deceptive.
Absolutely.
So what are some things we need to keep in mind?
So first and foremost, don't use any tactics that feel sleazy or high pressure. Be truthful about any urgency you create. Make sure your customer reviews are genuine. Focus on the real benefits of your products. Set clear and realistic expectations. Prioritize post-purchase satisfaction. Make returns easy. Provide ongoing value. Have transparent policies. Be accurate in your product representations. Provide realistic delivery timeframes. Be honest about your product capabilities. Make sure you have good customer support.
It's a lot to think about.
Yeah, it is, but it's important. And then customer privacy is crucial. Have clear data privacy policies. Get explicit consent for data collection. Ensure data security. Give people control over their data.
And be mindful of cultural differences.
Yes. What works in one culture might not work in another. So do your research and adapt your approach accordingly. The bottom line is always treat your customers with respect.
Yeah. The golden rule.
Exactly.
Okay, so looking ahead, what's the future of all this? Like, where do you see this going?
Well, emerging technologies are going to play a big role. AR and VR are going to become even more immersive. We might see things like haptic feedback, where you can actually feel products online. 3D printing previews,